Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Hidai Go Premanandi. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahanta Parivachikacharya Stotra Shri Srimati Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahanta Parivachikacharya Stotra Shri Srimati Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Thakur Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Gauri Vaishnava Vrind Ki. Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की श्री वृंदावन धाम की श्री मथुरा धाम की श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की श्री मायापुर धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की भक्ति देवी की श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसलेशनल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसलेशनल प्रसारण डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की श्री कार्तिक मास व्रत के श्री राधा दामोदर के श्री राधा गोपीनाथ के इधर गौर प्रेमानंदी हरे बोल all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories Shri Guru and Shri Guru Namo Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming to this morning's Bhagavatam class. We will be reading from Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text 30. Chapter is titled Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text number 30. Etadvaishudaya bhaktya yoga vyasena nityasha samahitatmani shango viraktya paripashati etadvaishudaya bhaktya योगाभ्यासेन नित्यसा समाहितात्मनि शंगो विरक्त्या परिपाशति एतद्वैषदया भक्त्या योगाभ्यासेन नित्यसा समाहितात्मनि शंगो विरक्त्या परिपाशति Word for word translation. Etat, this. Why, certainly. Shraddhaya, with faith. Bhaktya, by devotional service. Yoga abhyasena, by practice of yoga. Nityasa, always. Samahita atma, he whose mind is fixed. Nishanga, aloof from material association. Viraktya, by detachment. Paripashyati, understands. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chandra Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. He is aloof from material association. Purport. The atheistic mystic practitioner of yoga cannot understand this perfect knowledge. Only persons who engage in the practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi. It is possible for them to see and understand the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. It is clearly stated here that this is not possible to understand for one who has not developed devotional service in full faith. The word samahitatma and samadhi are synonymous. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatirupascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanandam Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Reading the translation for text 30, chapter 3, Canto 3, chapter 32, verse number 30. This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and was always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. He is aloof from material association. So this section started from verse number 26. I'll just read that just for, it gives the context. So this chapter, basically, it outlines the difference between an attached worker and a detached worker. An attached worker is, as described in the very first verse of this chapter, Grihamedi, or one who is actually pursuing his or her activities for their own sense gratification. And when they progress a bit further, they understand through the words of Shastra, not with the devotional aptitude, but with the understanding of Shastra, that if they perform certain sacrifices, then they'll be entitled to further benefits in the next life or in the higher planets. However, when those piety when the credits for that is exhausted, they actually come down to the lower planets or to this earthly planet. So in text 26, it's written, the Supreme Personality of Godhead alone is complete transcendental knowledge, but according to the different processes of understanding, he appears differently, either as impersonal Brahman, as Paramatma, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or as the Purusha Avatar. And in 27, this section speaks of Jnana Yoga, and this culminates into what we understand to be Bhakti Yoga. So in verse 27, the greatest common understanding for all yogis is complete detachment from matter, which can be achieved by different kinds of yoga. And this word detachment again appears in today's verse, where it says perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotion service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. So, and Krishna makes it very clear, Radha Muni makes it very clear. One who is absorbed in thought of the Supreme, which is bhakti, and we see that enumerated so many places in Srila Prabhupada's purports and in Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, that all other paths, the destination of all those paths cannot be achieved if there is not a trace of bhakti in it. Similarly, we see Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita speaking this in 18.55. Does anyone know the verse? Bhakti mama vijanati. Bhakti mama vijanati yavam chasati tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tat anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So to understand Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu wrote a beautiful article on this verse. He says, to understand Krishna, one should stand under Krishna. He writes that how at times, a spark, so there's the sun and there are sparks. A spark cannot find its illumination by itself. So similarly, Krishna is infinite and we are finite. We cannot approach the infinite by our own finite intelligence. In our conditioned existence, we try to conduct experiments. We try to, whatever we try to achieve, we try to achieve it by actually controlling the variables that we have under our control. So for example, if I want to achieve the outcome of a project, a lot of times I'll choose, I may choose certain people with certain skill set that are actually tailored to meet the deliverables of the project. There are certain resources that I'll be needing, which I'll be able to control. And if everything ticks the boxes, then I'll be able to achieve the outcome of the project. So this is again material science, and we do it by controlling the aspects of that we have under our control. But again, Krishna is infinite, so the experiments that we do shouldn't be on the object, but on the subject, which is us. So when we start practicing Krishna consciousness, when we come in the association of devotees, we should understand that it's us who needs the purification, and it's us who actually have to undergo the transformation. So to the extent that we follow authority, to the extent that we follow the guidelines, the teachings of our acharyas, and then Krishna will actually bestows his grace or his mercy upon us. We'll speak about the Damodar Leela in a bit, but what is actually described here is Krishna's grace. We understand in the Damodar Leela that when Mother Yashoda was trying to bind Krishna, she was always 2 fingers too short. And the Acharya described those 2 fingers actually signify Parishrama, which is our own effort, and Krishna Kripa, Krishna's grace. So both are required to attract Krishna. And because we are in this conditioned existence, we always try to control the outcome of every scenario that we are actually faced with, which brings us again to the point that we are all trying to be imitation Krishnas. Which, we may not openly say, I don't want to be Krishna, but if I want to control the outcome of every situation, then that actually is trying to take Krishna's place. So that's where we're actually competing with Krishna, and to the extent that we are not competing with Krishna, to that extent we're purified. So again, bhakti means we put under the control of Krishna, or for us in practical ways, to submit or to surrender to the instruction of a spiritual master, and the instruction and the Vaishnavas and Shri Radha Gopinath who are actually speaking through our spiritual master. Spiritual master can be a Diksha and a Shiksha Gurus. Secondly, the very famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse number 2. What's that? Raja Vidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratikshagam Pratikshavagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kratamavyam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct possession of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So, as it is said here, in this verse, one can achieve this perfect knowledge if one is performing or is engaged in service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment. I heard this once from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, where he was actually speaking to a disciple and saying that bhakti, Srila Prabhupada translated bhakti as devotional service. Actually, as we see, bhakti means devotion, but Srila Prabhupada translated as devotional service, practical devotional service. And Maharaj was describing that love is in the detail, not the sentiment. A lot of times we get carried away, or we identify love, or we portray love to be a sentiment or an emotion. But actually love is in the detail. So Maharaj was actually chastising someone, or he was actually correcting someone or giving them the instruction, because this devotee was actually bringing doklas or some food item that was cooked, and he or she was bringing them 4 or 5 at a time. So, and he said that if you have love is in the detail, you'll actually be bringing 1 dokla at a time, which is served hot. And what he was saying was, that's love in the detail, where you actually want to give the best of everything to the person that you're offering it to. So, again, faith is not, or love is not abstract. Similarly, faith, steadiness, and detachment is not abstract. There is detail underlying it. So we see that again in the reason why most of us fall short, at least for myself, fall short in this aspect, is because we don't fully appreciate personhood. Because personhood in our own existence is filled with limitations. When we don't want to surrender because we feel that there's something there that'll hurt us. But we see that Damodar Leela is actually filled with personal dealings and how Krishna, especially in Vrindavan, is reciprocating with his devotees, which are filled with love and personhood. Recently, I was hearing a class by Swami Devan Swami, and he was describing detachment. And he was just saying that, detachment, we have to be detached from matter, but even in spiritual life, there may be times that we have to fully surrender to Krishna's will. And he was saying how Srila Prabhupada exemplified this aspect of detachment to its perfection, or he was saying that one can't even conceive of it. He said the Juhu project, which Srila Prabhupada spent years, countless hours, fought with the municipal authorities, Mr. N, and so many other obstacles that Srila Prabhupada undertook. Yet, 5 months before the temple opening, Srila Prabhupada left. This was, so one may ask, he put in so much effort. Practically, he spent the most time in Juhu, more than any other temple in the world. But when the time came, he just said, I'm done. This is, so we understand, and in a lot of instances in our life, when we persevere, but there comes a point where if that's Krishna's desire, then we just humbly submit to it and let Krishna give whatever it is its shape and form as per Krishna's desire. So I found that quite interesting because I never saw it in that way, and Maharaj put it so nicely that and he said, even the Bhagavatam, when devotee said, Prabhupada, you haven't finished the Bhagavatam, I've given enough. Now it's for you all to carry forward. So again, someone with full faith, steadiness, full detachment, they can actually realize Krishna, or as it said, see Krishna face to face, and understand, even though we can't understand Krishna because, if we can, then that means we are imposing our intelligence upon Krishna, but Krishna is actually unlimited, and the aspect of him that's described in Shastra is that Swaras, he's fully independent. So, when we read in the Shikshashtakam, he's my worshipable unconditionally, even though he handles me roughly by his embrace. So, that's Krishna. Now, coming to Damodar Leela, I was very fortunate, and some of you who may have this, but if you don't, please get it. This book is written by composer of lectures by Dinabandhu Prabhu, and very sweet pastimes. Obviously, it's filled with the humor that Dinabandhu Prabhu is known for, but then he encapsulates certain points from our acharyas, which actually are so refreshing, but at the same time it gives new and newer taste to hear the Damodar Leela. So again, we understand in the spiritual world everything is a person. That again is very hard for us to put our heads around, because even the grass has consciousness. Even every living entity has a unique relationship with Krishna, which again is comes to its fullest in the spiritual world. So, as is described, Nanda Maharaj had 900,000 cows. Now, for us, the closest that comes to it when we go to New Gokul, we see 80 cows. But just imagine, 900,000 cows. Out of those 900,000 cows, there were 1,000 special cows. From those 1,000 special cows, they fed the milk of those 1,000 special cows to 100 cows. And then the milk from those 100 cows were fed to 10 very special and cows whose milk was very fragrant. Of those 10 cows, the milk that was given from that cow to one very special cow was known as Padmagandha. So the one whose milk is very fragrant. So Mother Yashoda would churn the butter of that milk that was actually extracted from this Padmagandha cow. Now, Srila Prabhupada writes, when you chant Hare Krishna, so as Mother Yashoda is churning the butter, she's constantly, she's chanting Krishna's pastimes in a song. So it would happen in those days that when you go to the Acharya, the Acharyas would say that you would go to the professional reciters, they would encapsulate the pastimes in a song for one to remember. Srila Prabhupada always will say, when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna is hearing you, and Krishna is hearing his name, and when Krishna hears his name, he's most ecstatic. And Mother Yashoda is actually chanting in Vatsalya Prem. So just imagine how much more Krishna is. If when Krishna is so excited when a devotee is chanting Shuranam, this is Mother Yashoda chanting in pure Vatsalya Prem. So, Sri Dinapanta Prabhu writes, or he says, that those that have kids in the house, they know that they can only get their work done when the kids are sleeping. So, Krishna is sleeping, and that's when Mother Yashoda is churning the butter, but her singing is so sweet that Krishna actually wakes up. And when Krishna actually wakes up, he is hungry and he's calling for Mother Yashoda to feed him. Now, as Mother Yashoda is feeding Krishna, the milk that is left on the stove that's boiling, it starts to think that Krishna's belly encompasses unlimited universes, and Mother Yashoda has unlimited love for Krishna. So this will go on eternally, where this milk, Krishna will be drinking the milk, and what will happen to me? How will I get to serve the Lord? At that very moment, the milk starts to boil over, and Mother Yashoda drops Krishna and then goes to attend the milk on the stove. Now, our acharyas describe that Krishna became angry as soon as Mother Yashoda left him there. Now we understand that, from those that, for all of us, those of us that have read Nectar Devotion, Krishna became angry. So is that pratikul or anukul? Was that meant for Krishna's pleasure or not? Because the other example that is given is Kamsa was actually thinking of Krishna 24/7. So Kamsa is thinking of Krishna 24/7, Mother Yashoda is thinking, but Krishna got angry, but at the same time, Kamsa is actually giving pleasure to Krishna because Krishna likes to fight. So, which one is pratikul and which one is anukul? Any thoughts? Mother Yashoda is pratikul, favorable? Yes, why? She's doing everything because she wants to off the milk, or when it's boiled, the sweets that will be for Krishna. So she's going through that whole arduous exercise just for Krishna's pleasure. Meanwhile, Kamsa wants to kill Krishna. So because he wants to kill Krishna, that is pratikul, that's not favorable. So similarly, in our own life, whatever service we do, what mood are we doing it in? Secondly, Mother Yashoda ran to save the milk from boiling over. She was actually doing service to a Vaishnava, to the devotee, which is the milk. So at that very moment, it is described that the milk, upon seeing Mother Yashoda's love for itself, all that is described as that Mother Yashoda took some water and just spilled it, and the milk went right back in. But actually, the milk, Acharya described that the milk was so touched by Mother Yashoda's affection because Mother Yashoda had Krishna on her lap, but she put Krishna down and came to rescue the milk. She was actually doing service to the milk, which is a devotee, and that actually, the milk became so much more astonished, and just wanted to reciprocate with Mother Yashoda, that actually went back into the pot. So service to the Vaishnavas is actually higher than service to Krishna itself. And we see in the pastime Damodar Leela later on, as the pastime unfolds, how Krishna appeared there were many reasons for which Krishna appeared, but one of them, the primary, was to honor the words or the benediction that were given by Narada Muni. Later on, as the pastime unfolds, again Krishna comes he becomes angry. He after he's fed, and then he comes and steals butter, and then he's stealing the butter and gives it to the monkeys. Now, in the pastime of Lord Ramachandra, as we understand, Lord Ramachandra was helped by all these monkeys, but Krishna felt that he didn't reciprocate with the monkeys enough, so now in this pastime he gives the butter to the monkeys because that's his way of reciprocating and giving to the monkeys, so just that they'll be satisfied. Later on, it is described that Krishna, Mother Yashoda, when she finally catches up to Krishna's antics, she runs around the inner courtyard of their home, and in Vedic times, the women actually don't leave the inner courtyard. So Krishna then finally devises a plan that enough of this, let the whole world see how my mother will be chastising me. So he runs and goes outside into the public. So as he starts running outside, it is said all these flower braids that are on Mother Yashoda's hair, that are decorating her hair, they start to fall down. And our choice described that these flowers, they're thinking that Mother Yashoda is trying to catch Krishna, whom the yogis are trying to catch in their meditation for thousands and thousands of lifetimes. And yet this is here, Krishna is running in fear of Mother Yashoda. We certainly don't feel qualified to be on her head, rather we'd be at her feet. So they fall, and then that's the way of offering their respects to Mother Yashoda. So similarly like that, we see later on, Krishna is then bound up to the motor, and then he drags it, and then there's a choice described that he's dragging it very slowly, just because the rope that he's tied to the motor, he doesn't want that to loosen, so that when he touches the trees, he doesn't want that contraction to loosen, so that it would. He wants the trees to fall, or the trees to. He wants to bring down the trees, but if the ropes loosen up, then he won't be able to achieve it. So these finer details actually bring us closer and closer to personhood. That is why it is described that it's once we were in a class with Devanmrita Maharaj and someone, because the topic was personalism versus impersonalism, and Maharaj said, he made a very simple point, but it actually struck with everyone there very deeply. He said, because you're a person, you can reciprocate with someone impersonally. So for example, I'm sitting here and I can choose not to look at you, which would be seen as cold and very unwelcomed. But because I'm a person, I can act with you impersonally. So person actually is the basis of which impersonalism can come from. So it's not, a lot of people think it's the impersonal Brahman, or they have the idea that from Krishna comes, Krishna is derived from that, but Krishna as a person, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm the basis for the resting place for the Brahman. So personhood is what Krishna comes and attracts us to, and he comes and performs his enchanting pastimes. Yesterday I was reading this beautiful letter of Srila Prabhupada that someone had actually shared, which I'll read it out now. Krishna's invitation. Krishna's Leela is Nitya Leela. Just to attract us that you are fond of dancing, why don't you come back to me and dance with me? Why you are rolling in this rolling dance? You want association, you want sporting, why don't you come to me and take part in my sporting with a cowherd boy? This is the invitation of Krishna. So one who has got intelligence will try to enter the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, either as a cowherd boy or as a servant, or as a flower, as a tree, or the water of Yamuna, or the land, or the father and mother, and the conjugal lover. Or it may be as enemy, as Agasura, Pakasura, Putana. They are also blessed because they are acting with Krishna. This is some and substance of Vrindavan Leela. Krishna comes, he exhibits his Leela in Vrindavan just to attract the conditioned souls who are engaged in false Leela, temporary Leela, or hellish Leela. Krishna wants to save us. This is Krishna's invitation. And obviously we are in this month of Damodar Leela. There are so many enchanting pastimes that happen. And each year, whenever Damodar Leela comes, some devotees go to Vrindavan just to absorb themselves in hearing and chanting, going on parikrama, or some devotees take up more and more service, just somehow or the other, to break this conception of, say, impersonhood and embrace personhood. Once His Grace Anuttama Prabhu was saying that we have signed up for radical personalism, which means that we really want that relationship with Krishna, and to the extent that we want it, to that extent Krishna will reveal Himself to us. So I'll end here. If maybe anyone has a question or comment. Yes, sure. Hare Krishna. Cows only eat grass, they don't drink their own milk. Only calves drink their milk. Let me see what exactly said here. Nanda Maharaj has 900,000 cows. Among those, there were 1,000 special cows. From those 1,000 special cows, they take the milk and feed it to 100 very special cows. Then they take the milk of those 100 very special cows and feed that milk to 10 very, very special cows. Now there's one extremely special cow. They take the milk of those 10 special cows and feed that to Padmakanda. So. Vrindavan is the land of where all contradictions come to rest. So yeah, everyone loves milk. Yes, yes, Prabhu, you were saying. No, yes, Prabhu. They fell. Yeah, so they're coming from previous acharyas, and Dinabandhu Prabhu spoke them in a lecture, and that's where he enumerates them. But yeah, most of them, yeah, he's Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, but he hasn't described which acharya, but in some places he does mention which acharya is actually saying this, some Rupa Goswami or Sridhar Swami, but then in some places he's saying it based on what he's heard from. Yeah. Thank you. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, श्री दामोदर मास की, गो प्रेमानंदी, गौर भक्त वृंद की।